All right. Well, a lot to discuss.
There we go. Okay, you. Okay, we can probably start off with the non-general meeting stuff.
I don't think we have anything to discuss besides the general meeting stuff. I'm not gonna lie, because can't really do anything other than that until that's determined. So, big discussion. We've lost a significant number of staff
I mean,
recently.
non-general meeting as in like not just update stuff like normal LOL.
Fair enough. But yes, you've lost a significant number of staff. Um, with the number that we have, and the number that are active, and the number that are likely to leave in the near future, I do not see us being able to continue with the current level of regions and uh, reach that we have at the moment. Um, I think we have maybe 3, 4 GMs.
I'm not entirely caught up on that, but Thitham's unable to help out currently, right?
Systems has left as staff. So, one of the things that I'm thinking that could potentially work would be obviously downsizing. I know shifting to a single region focus um, would one require the DMs that we have to focus on that region rather than personal stories, which is going to require their input. Um,
So here's the biggest issue overall with that line of focus. It's like one, yeah, okay, that's one way to do it for sure, but I don't think it necessarily falls in line with the interests of certain uh people who do want a GM in the first place.
mhm.
Some people won't have a problem with it, some people won't or will, but the other aspect of it is that there's not really an overarching story focus for any of the regions, so it doesn't like shift or resolve any issues that we currently have outside of just focusing a lot of decisions onto like one particular region head as an example, or forcing people who don't want to interact with a particular region to then interact with a particular region. So I don't think that's really like the path forward, because you risk losing more GMs and then you also risk having players be interested. And I think it's probably a little bit more productive to focus on why we lost these people in the first place and then kind of like move from there.
Well, I think for us to discuss on that, people who are aware of why they left would need to discuss this because they simply state the way things are without giving a reason. I know it is difficult to criticize, and I'm aware of certain things that are certainly an issue. Um,
My input on that and focusing on why people left is kind of not helpful because people leaving is generally a burnout and time thing.
that is a trigger, but there's more than that. There's definitely more than
Yeah.
that.
So I've talked with systems quite a bit here and there over the brain. I've talked with them quite a bit over like the past like few months of just about like how things are going, and there's a lot of roadblocks to people being able to like run and create things on their own, and
That's confusing.
the roadblock being like people's availability,
Hmm.
right? And it's in other areas outside of this, but like this is the only thing that he and I like talked at like any kind of length about. is that like, as an example, like we were trying to do like the deity thing and flesh out that, and there seemed to be inconsistencies with like this or that, and then we were trying to work at like a certain pace and it wasn't going through, and we didn't like really seem to have like control over. Brain stopped because I have gunfire in my headset right now. Gotta recollect. Oh, we basically like were like fleshing things out, and then it just
Yeah.
fizzled out, right?
So I think
And
in that regard, in terms of like lack of feeling like people have control, really comes down to um, people not believing that they do. Because I have said multiple times for DD specifically, as an example, since we're using that, that they can overrule me. So Sithem's, suggestion on like Asmodeus as an example, where they're an over DD, I'm like, all right, they're an over DD. So there's certain things where if like someone's a region head, and they're doing their thing, I'm like, cool, pop off. Um, there's you know other things where I've given GMs a lot of creative freedom. I think that is probably one of the issues tied to DMs though, and like creation team, is that I'm been so hands off, unfortunately, for multiple of reasons. Um, that people who do like to have some structure, we have or had or have and had, uh, don't really have a bearing, so they don't really know what to do. And then there's those who, are good with freeform stuff and will just kick things off. Like I know we have a lot of balance chat, and you guys were popping off things like approving different balance things going off left and right. Um, that's the way I was wanting it for a hot minute, and then people were wanting me to just take, step in, and unfortunately, the way life happens, I needed a new job, and training fucked my schedule right when I needed to step up. I'm not blaming anyone. It's just a shitty situation, but I do think that really comes down to in terms of, um, you know, not feeling like people have say in things comes down to I suppose just it's definitely a fuck up on my part. I should have made that more clear that you guys do have a lot of power. But it's just unfortunate, really.
yeah, and that's how things go, and like nobody's expecting people to put anything here over anything outside of here. It's not reasonable, but um kind of like you said, there seems to be a misunderstanding or a miscommunication as far as to like what people can and do want to get involved with. And then in that same vein, for maybe people who do understand it, there is a level of I don't want to do something or start something and then find out down the line that like overriding it is just outside of the realm of like limitations and stuff, right? It's like, okay, we overrode this one thing. He said he had a problem or said that there was like some kind of conflict, but it was whatever, and then something else happens later down the line because there's no guideline for it, and then you overwrite something else and it goes like whoa, 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 right? And then the other aspect that he was talking about was that um on the leadership front, there are people who have the time to dedicate to the living world uh that he thought were putting in the amount of time that they should, who are like a lot more active, and then people who weren't putting in the time that thought that they should for their position, and that seemed to kind of like make things a little bit more difficult.
Yeah.
And that's not, because they don't want to, or maybe just because they just simply don't have the time or they don't have the interest, whatever like the reason is that the time invested in this like project, even though we're all volunteers at the end of the day, still needs to be put in one way or another if it's supposed to continue on smoothly from his perspective. And I agree with that, right?
Mhm.
We shouldn't, for certain things that need to be overlooked, we shouldn't use the fact that we're volunteers to not do one thing or another, or not give time to the project overall, because at the end of the day, there's a lot of people who are invested in this is their hobby, this is something that they like look forward to at the end of the day, and we should try to respect their time and not kind of string them along for something that's not getting the attention that they expect it to get, regardless of whether they're like paying for it or not. We all in some capacity have more or less put on paper that we're going to be here to try to support these efforts to some extent.
Yeah.
And that's how I see me signing up to be a GM, is like, I'm here to try to give you guys some like level of content without expecting anything in return, and carry that forward. And if I'm sitting around and I'm not doing what I can for one reason or another because I'm like way too busy with work, or I've just lost my interest and desire, then I've kind of walked that back, and I'm just kind of like sitting on my hands at that point. But
Mhm.
those are like the two big things he and I were discussing, and you can try to ask him to have him be more direct about his other things, but those are basically just our gear grinding conversations.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't disagree. There's been multiple issues of availability, to the point where when I knew I was going to get real bad in availability, I mentioned in a meeting that I was going to be needing to be more hands off. You guys have a lot more freedom. I think that was like 7 months ago. So I don't think anyone would have remembered that because it was a single meeting where I mentioned that.
It was something along the lines of job and training. I remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, look at that go. I know, other people have been super busy too. Just, life fucking happens. And I feel like for leadership, clearly that level of interaction as compared to Sithams, as an example, being a fucking superhero, doing so much stuff, and, myself, as life is going, doing, messages here and there and working on equipment guide and outside stuff. And a lot of moderation. Not a lot of moderation. It does. I can definitely see why that is a major morale drainer. So the only thing I really say about that is, it fucking sucks. I'm sorry that, myself and some others have not really been able to step up. I'm hoping now that I'm settled, I can actually do that. Finally, I'm done with fucking training. Hopefully, the fact that I need to get these pay-to-play games off, making them in a way that I can still have time. So it should be good.
Yeah,
But
I
yeah,
right,
as a big issue, I do think a lot of that comes down to people, if they want to step up as leadership, I'm more than willing to get some more help here. Because a lot of the things of that nature comes down to we need more people who are willing to step up, which is the issue because people are burning out. Because I think I have like maybe 5 different head roles right now, and no one wanting to step up into those head roles.
Well, we also have a lot of people that just are skirting by because they don't want to do anything.
I don't know about because they don't want to do anything. I feel like it is because of burnout. And
I'll say for like my like personal situation is I have a pretty significant ability to multitask with the jobs that I currently have.
Mhm.
And when Red stepped down from being balance head, he put in like a good healthy amount of work to understand basically like where the current system like stands at its high ends and its low ends, and
yeah,
did a handful of experiments to test those limits,
Mhm.
right? And it's crazy how strong you can be, and also crazy how weak you can be in comparison, and it
Mhm.
makes it difficult to do those balance things. But I had an interest in it until I kind of sat there and I thought like, okay, well, where is like the line for me there? Because there'll be a lot of situations where I'll just say, all right, I've talked with some people, or I've heard like a lot of opinions. Fuck it, I'm done here. This is like where my line is. Well, here's the evidence. Let's move on. And
Mhm.
then someone else might come in and go like, well, wait, that's crazy, or that's insane, or just generally just not agree with
yeah,
that decision. And it's really important for me when standing in a leadership role or any kind of role of authority to understand where the limits of the other people who share that responsibility stand, right?
Mhm.
And being able to at least like poke or prod them at some point and get a response in what I subjectively determine to be like a reasonable time frame for taking care of what I want to take care of.
yeah,
So understanding like the balance of like that autonomy is like pretty important, because I can also be an abrasive person when at least trying to take care of business here and there,
Mhm.
because for certain things it's kind of just objective reality, evidence, move on, move forward, right? Versus dealing with people's opinions and feelings on a certain subject.
yeah,
And so at least being able to, ping or bounce an idea off of somebody every so often to make sure that I'm within the realms of my abrasive personality instead of like stepping outside and basically rubbing people with sandpaper is very helpful for me.
Mhm.
But I didn't know any of that stuff, and so that stops me from doing something like that.
Certainly fair. Yeah, I can't really speak on Red's behalf, especially since they're here. Uh, well, I mean, if they weren't here, that would be even ruder. Um, but I know balance team is just it's a lot. It can cause some pretty big burnout because it does involve such heated debate. For me personally, because of my training, I was in the land of if it's important, I will check pings. If it needs to be a timely fashion, it'll be in Firehouse.
If I may,
Go ahead.
um, I kind of looking at balance. I don't know how I would fix some of the problems that I see there, to be honest. One of the main problems is kind of just the disparity that you can have from like having nothing, and not having like an amazing build, kind of, to having an amazing build. Like, you can easily make a level 8, level something character with like 20 DPS and a character with 200 DPS, and it's just like, okay,
Mhm.
I, man. Um, so that's kind of one of the problems that I was looking at, and I was like, I don't know how to fix this. One of the other problems is just some of the systems here, especially in like items and so on, are really complicated in a way that I'm not the happiest with, and I don't really want to interact with. I think I kind of pushed a little bit, a good amount of stuff related to the EQG onto like the economy team, because I was like, I really don't know what NERP kind of wants here. I
Yeah.
guess, yeah, that is one other thing. I'm not really the most in tune with what you NERP want for like most of the systems in the living world as a whole. Like I don't know where we're kind of going with some of these things.
Gotcha. That's it's definitely an issue on my part.
At this point, I've stepped down, so I
Yeah.
don't know how much it matters.
It doesn't. Yeah. I would just say, as a blanket statement for those who are interested in balance, assuming we are able to continue in a similar fashion, since there is that discussion still to be had in terms of where we go. But for balance, I have like my major pillars I want to hit in terms of the ability to kind of embody the creativity of Pathfinder First Edition as an example, where you can like mix and match and feel like a badass. And I really want martials to not just be I swing my sword and I end my turn. That's why those feat trees are so important. Why stamina is such an important system, because the martial classes will have access to certain things. And then mages will have similar things. In terms of the equipment guide, that's a major beast of balance issues. We all know that. I've always been in terms of how I present things, I tend to, I'm sure people know, overpower things by a fuck ton. So, balance team, in my eyes, has been more of a way to produce things, give people that creativity, allow them to do stuff. With balance giving the final seal of approval, you don't need my approval. And for things I output, you guys rein me in. Because clearly I'm going to post out broken shit. In terms of like another major pillar, we hit on the ability to feel, the creativity and the freedom and the, I guess the cool factor kind of functioning with those class systems. I think a major pillar tied to that would be kind of the key word I'm thinking of. I kind of hit 3 of them already, didn't I? Is there a 4th one? Fuck, no, I'm just... Alright, I'm blanking on this one. I think I just hit all 3 of them, and I'm just being a banana right now. Well, anyways, I'll probably remember it, and I'm gonna kick myself for forgetting. But core thing, creativity, feeling like a badass, and just being able to actually do stuff. That rule of cool, that feeling of not feeling like your turn was wasted.
I can personally appreciate that to an extent. Like a phrase that has been like thrown around quite a bit by a lot of people in the past couple months is that that would be okay for a home game. Like that phrase specifically, right? Because because we have enough different people who can make rulings in different games and apply this and that to different items or situations where things don't have either standard vernacular or it's not expressly like written out like particularly clearly, and then they take that ruling from a different GM, go over to another GM as an example, and then it just doesn't fly. Or someone was like, yeah, I'm gonna make this like cool neat thing for somebody, give it to them, and then it gets carried over to somebody else, and the person goes like, "What am I supposed to do with this?" Right?
Mm-hmm.
It's the mentality of like rule of cool is a super good thing to have, especially in home games, but it's very hard to enforce that across, like, 60 different people and 10 different people who have the ability to shift and morph that ruling at like any given moment. And it creates friction not just between like different players who are like, oh, I just happened to think of that and somebody let me do it, but also players and GMs. When we're dealing with so many people, it's a lot easier to have like that structure of, yeah, this is what the rules say. We're going to kind of abide by that as much as humanly possible. And anything outside of that is hard to get multiple people's opinions on. So it's good in theory to want to do that, but in practice, for such a big thing that involves so many people,
Mhm.
I personally don't see it as feasible without a monumental amount of work being put in, and I just don't think we have like the human resources to put in the work to support that at the moment. And we see that with custom feats, potential custom classes that are going forward, this and that. We have different players of different mentalities, of like somebody who's just like, oh, I just want like this funny whimsical thing, and there's a lot of implications behind it, but that's not really what they're concerned with. They just want to do a funny thing. And then we have other people who like try to push and take the system to their absolute limits within those wordings and guidelines and stuff, and then use that as a justification to do something absolutely crazy. Kind of like somebody breaking something that's not a law yet, that's just obviously wrong, and then being the reason why that thing becomes a law, so to speak. It's hard
Yeah.
for everyone involved to go down that path. The sort of in like the same like wheelhouse, but not exactly on that balance path, is people having a certain level of self-awareness among staff. Like if you are in a position that carries weight or has the final say on anything, whether you're like a region head, a balance head, an econ head, a divinity head, whatever, if you don't have the time to basically respond to things like that in a timely enough manner, or you don't have the, I guess I want to say, management skills to identify individuals you want to delegate things to because you just don't have the time, you should take some time to kind of like identify those skills or those resources you have, resources being time in this case,
Hmm.
and either reevaluate how you're handling the role or advocate somebody else pick up your role at some point, or become more of like advisory to that role
So
in a sense.
I do think there's a big issue with this latter part of thinking, in that we are all volunteers. So even though I have mentioned multiple different like head roles that we're needing filled, I can delegate all I want. They're not gonna do it. I need people to say that they want to do it. They'll do it. For example, Red, they went to me and they're like, "Hi, I want to be balance head." They did. They popped off with a bunch of results, and then it became an issue for them, and they stepped down.
Yep.
But they did the work. They
Yep.
put out that balance guide for you guys, which I imagine that was pretty freaking helpful. So a lot of the issues in that regard comes just down to people being volunteers and not wanting to step up for whatever reason, and I get that. Just, if
I
you
have
guys were
thoughts on why the
paid,
head roles end up not having people
Ooh.
stand up for them and the general state of the team, which is a good segue into it if I may.
shoot.
To start off, my thoughts on the general state of things is that realistically for this meeting right now, what we're immediately needing to be talking about is the nature of the community we're trying to run and changing that reality from increased availability in previous years, and maybe we should shift to things that explicitly be focusing on goals as a whole. Whether that goal is developing and testing the system, or running games and stories together, we don't really have a clear one here, and we don't the same availability as before to just have everything sitting around for interested folks to hop in and push things along based on occasional interest, which was essentially the philosophy in the past.
Okay, I was waiting to see if there was any more messages being posted out.
The living world
No.
essentially was always a place to achieve two goals at the same time, one being fostering a community interested in the system and playing in it and enjoying it, and interconnected with that was being able to play, test and development the system as a result.
Yeah. I do think this bigger topic is definitely something we should shift towards. However, looking at the failures to see why staff is dropping the way they are is that's going to be pretty important on any decision we make on how we continue. Except for the one where we just basically turn it into a hub for games, in which case we don't really need a team.
Oh, for sure, I think we've gotten a ton of really good input on specific failure stuff. I just want to first talk about the two identities, since I think they've kind of been in the background.
Certainly fair. I'm kind of curious what the team would consider the identities that are kind of like fighting against one another right now. If anyone else have input on that.
The idea of work in progress versus, a place to play games. Because, like, as a player before becoming staff, it's kind of like, yeah, you get frustrated by a shift in ability here or a ruling on this here that's like a firm one that everyone abides by, and it either goes against you or it opens up something that you just don't necessarily agree with, and it frustrates people. I think that happens with downtime days, or at least happened with downtime days. Now that we're starting to get like a wrangle on it. On the staff side, because we're constantly like, meshing and managing that stuff, I feel like as staff, understand the work in progress aspect of the living world because we're working on it and we know it's not complete, or there's so many situations where we're like, I don't know about that, right? But from like a player side, I don't ever get the sense that most people understand or not understand, but see the world as necessarily a work in progress. I don't think I've ever gotten that vibe from anybody who hasn't at least been ex-staff before.
Yeah, I know we have people who are constantly saying that to the community, being like, "It's a work in progress."
Yeah.
Keep that in mind. I know Sky pops off a lot with that sometimes in a way that gets him in trouble, but
But they're not wrong though. Like,
Right.
yeah,
we've told people this several times. It's even in the thing when we first started. Hey, this is a work in progress. Things are going to change. You may not like it.
So I do think, however, while we've been very public about us being a work in progress.
Okay, before we go further in here, I want to be explicit that we've been clear about that, but that's not the problem I'm saying here.
I feel like there's a follow-up. I'm waiting. Yeah, no, it's definitely a strain on the systems and players morale, staff morale. Uh, while we have been very transparent in that regard, it's an issue, as Legacy is indicating there, and others have said. Um, so that does bring up another question. I'm going to continue working on Spheres of Divinity, especially since I'm going to be using it for my pay to play game. If we were to continue,
it's less of a burden on player morale. We've been super transparent and like giving rebuilds and stuff. I'm saying we need to be aware that it's also a strain on the staff side though. I would say this is absolutely like what I think makes balancing so hard, for example.
yeah. I do think if we were to continue, deciding on core system values will be something that we would need to look into. I know for me, I've been focused on trying to get that equipment guide out, putting it on World Anvil, a lot of data entry. There's a bigger issue, I think, at stake right now for the health of the team and the players, being that the disparity of power level between different classes. So
I
go ahead.
will ask, just like right now, if we were going to continue the living world, what would the region breakdown be like? What are we thinking here? Because as far as I know, there are no more like actual
I have
brood
notes on that, gimme a
DMs.
bit though, feel free to chat.
Okay.
What were you
I
ending
see.
there?
Yeah.
I was just like, as far as I know, there's no Brusian DMs, and then there's still some people in Eldiria, but after that it gets a little bit fuzzy.
I was gonna say I think the only like consistent Eldiria DM is currently like Full Metal, and I think Frisbee's Static, which I think as Templar said
Pris
isn't going forward anymore.
yes,
No, he
Frisbee
is. He is.
Static is
He is
done.
closing static.
Yeah.
But
And then
there's also
For Baruja, there's only me and Kismet doing stuff at the moment.
yeah.
And we're all doing our own thing in Kismet.
Yeah.
Eldoria has been cruising on a lot of lore stuff we've worked together on, but yet even that has limits because it's interconnected.
Yeah, and there's nobody, especially like for Eldiria and Barugia now, is that there's nobody in either of those realms who can put the final seal of approval or final stamp on things like often enough for people who want to work on them.
Mhm.
There was when Systems was here for Barugia, and then I think like
And I
Fritz.
don't have the availability that I should have while working full-time healthcare. Yup.
Yep,
Fritz
I've
was
been
a
there.
huge contributor.
Yeah, and then he
Yeah.
just
Fritz is bowed
there's a
out
lot
too.
of-
So there's a lot of, well, I'm just gonna say staffs members leaving, DMs and the like, that have made sticking at the current level of pace, as I brought up at the beginning, I would say nigh impossible without new members joining. Which we've been holding off on due to the imbalances that we are trying to adjust.
Okay, so my thoughts on that I was mentioning. I think we need to ultimately be a play testing thing, including not really story progression.
I feel like there's a follow-up.
It's hard. It's hard to know.
It is truly hard to know sometimes.
Text to speech, damn you.
All
I'm
I heard
sorry
was
guys, Peppa hands.
all I heard was we should just stop being a living world and be a play testing area until that gets fixed.
I'll just type a bit to make it easier.
Huzzah. Maybe do it like radio style where you're like, stop, so we know there's more. Or,
Roger,
break.
Roger.
Roger. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways, while you're typing up the follow-up, I mean, test fights are lovely. They are quite helpful for balance purposes. I do look at those numbers.
That doesn't.
It's not
doesn't-
games.
It's not games. It's not progression. It is not the
games,
world.
It's not doing anything.
Yeah.
It also
it's-
doesn't help in social scenarios and stuff like
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
which some classes are kind of leaned towards that more with the skill monkeys.
And
Yeah.
depending on what you mean by test fights, if you mean like fights that require you have a set amount of like gold to spend before every mission and stuff like that, those don't really work in my opinion because it just shows what the equipment guide can do more than the actual class itself or other things. Because the
I
equipment guide overinflates a lot of numbers.
I feel
I
like
No, I disagree with this, but I'm gonna save my disagreement so we don't go off the tangent.
it's definitely been hard from like at least like a GM. My biggest reason for basically being air quotes as air quotes as I can. You can't see my fingers going any harder. Trying to divest myself from any particular region is mostly just that prior when I like started GMing is I didn't have too much interest in Doliter because that just it was so like physically separate from the other places. Like I can't really do the things that I want to do outside of it. But CAD is super active. For Borussia stuff, it always like whenever I talk with systems, it always seemed to be like a mishmash between systems doing his thing and Nerp doing his thing, and then not wanting to crisscross one thing with another thing, or the lores that they have written up, or at least mentally have written up, and the things that are going on with there. I like Eldiria a lot, but I play in Eldiria, unfortunately, for the most part, because my character's a hermit. And Monty wasn't head of our locus at the time, but Earlobe just seemed completely unapproachable to me. And it just didn't seem like it was going to work out. But I wanted an area that I felt like could try to tie in other things for people from different regions. So if somebody was interested in a particular region, they could find something from that region in that area without me necessarily needing to go through the blockades, as I saw it, of region heads and their availability and their willingness and to accommodate those things. So I put myself in the Ember Mountains because I asked everybody of like, okay, what are the things here that I need to be aware of? People more or less told me not much, and an Earlobe said, just don't do anything in the northern region because I have things going on there. I'm like, okay, cool, don't care. I'm going to do stuff over here. It's not going to touch your stuff as much as humanly possible. And then if I have questions on, a particular region or something like that, I'll just look for the information or ask people.
Yeah.
And I did. And it worked out for the most part. And then as I started wanting to get more involved in like pulling things from the other regions, I found it like very difficult. And I just either would get the response of, I don't know, but I think it might mess with something else, or there isn't anybody to answer me, or, at the time, somebody just not being approachable, regardless of my ability to reach out to them. I think it might be better if, going forward, it may be easier for people to like write things down and put the lore that like let people write things down and put the lore that they make inside of like a big working document that we all have access to so that we can identify whether or not we're crisscrossing people's wires and stuff, and then instead of having region heads basically be that blockade of putting the final stamp down on something, they'll instead kind of be the last defense of, yeah, you gave a player godlike powers because they were in this area doing this one thing. No, kind of deal, right? But that also requires somebody to have time to kind of like peruse their region and see if there are any particular updates. So I don't actually know if that resolve things, but at least from like the bottom side of people without the authority.
I do think we actually already have that system in place where GMs are highly encouraged to write their stuff down and share their stuff. like we had the lore folder for a reason where people can mark down, and we've had multiple different GMs team up and build lore for the Miro Imperium, for example, and other different regions and locations, and focus on like different cities and writing the lore for that. I love that shit. I've always wanted Syrik to be a collaboration, a world where it's not just me building it; it's myself and my players, and in the Living Worlds case, every single staff as well. Because we're all here to build and form this world in our collective vision. So the more people are writing things down, I know I don't have that as a requirement, so maybe that is a mistake on my part, saying DMs should not write things down. Or, sorry, not should not. Can choose not to. Yeah, Ghostwalk, I've been really meaning to fucking look at that. Just, life is a bitch. So, like, I feel like perhaps that issue goes into a lot of people deciding to do their own thing. Because
to an extent, I'll use the Miro thing as an example because I like loosely worked with systems on it because I wanted to take the God Emperor as it was supposed to be, and kind of use that and build out some like ancient lore that people could dig into over time, or things that they can interact through, like items that have like carvings or are made in a specific way that's like native to like older versions of the Imperium and all that other things. And then while we were making it, the first thing systems and I wanted to do to actually like make this something people to interact with is delve into the God King, right? And I gave him like my ideas, and he was like, okay, I'll check and like see like what Nerp has to say or think on it. And then he brought back to me. Let me control F Vazia. Oh, he brought back to me Vazia ruling over the Hakuta Midlands for a long time, and I had no idea about that, or if there was some place for me to find it. And then getting into the aspect of the Age of Omens and the fact that the Bull of Heaven, as we were writing it, would have shown up at least 1,000 years ago or something like that. Not super recent, but not like, tens of thousands of year old. But then the Age of Omens creating a problem with that, even though we have like other deities or deity-like entities who are older than the Age of Omens, and so him, like, the bull not being able to show up didn't make sense to us because there's already precedent for deities being able to
it's not that they can't show up, it's that many of those in the past were forgotten, which is what I implied for that particular entity, is that they cannot be around during the Age of Omens, otherwise they'd probably just be killed. So they could be on planet. They can do that thing. Rather they weren't, just because of power level would make that deity so much more stronger than other deities physically on planet. You can. It is a plot hole that could exist though, pretty heavily. So I prefer just being like an avatar or something of that nature. But the big thing there is not that it cannot exist during the Age of Omens. It can. It would just need to be a ghost or, lost in some way, locked away, something that would trigger it to not be in the vicinity of Oblivion, who would have eaten that deity and been like, nom, 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 good breakfast.
Right. And I want you to take everything that you just said, and then I want you to direct me to where I would have been able to figure out and find that out without your input. Right. And that's more or less the problem there, is that we were working on this. It could have been fleshed out. And like with a kind of project like this in my head, it was basically like, if you have, I will write things in such an open-ended way that if there is like a critical flaw with it, right, I can get around that.
I think for this, a lot of that information was way back before we even kicked off players and running games.
Yeah.
So a lot of that is just buried, unfortunately.
Yeah,
It's there. It's just buried.
but at the end of the day, it's the access to that information to.
Well, the information is accessible. We have it in the drive and we have it in server. It's just buried. You have to look for it. At least that one specifically. I know there's other ones where it's not accessible, and yeah, I'm
But
roadblocked for certain things.
That's my overall point, though. The specific example, maybe having things for it, that's good and everything, but that detracts from my point of that that's going to happen more often than not, and it makes people either feel like there's something moving too slowly because they are fleshing out the back end of a game or something, or their players have done something very interesting that they want to deal with and they want to move on. And maybe I don't actually know if there's things written down for the Skysworn, but Skysworn's another example where there are some people who are interested in writing things for Skysworn, but they immediately were like, nah, I'm not going to do that because I don't really know what NERP's intentions for it is.
My intention is have fun with it. If you guys want to pop off and do Skysworn shit, pop off. I produced the first mission as a way to introduce the faction and a few NPCs and a lot of players to take on that subclass. Everything beyond that was, if players utilized, what's the word for it? Influence or prestige alike to, produce missions, I would run more games for them.
Yep.
But
the overall point being is there's enough situations like that where people go, okay, I don't think or don't know if I can write that one thing, and then they think back to some other instance or example of somebody that they've talked with where oh yeah, there was this lore behind it that I didn't know about, either because they didn't know where to get it, or it was buried too deep, or they had to wait to ask somebody else, not you specifically, but you're just the easy example for me to to pick on, so I'm not trying to pick on you.
That's all good.
But that happens often enough where somebody goes I want to do this thing, and then they think about all the effort that they would have to go to try to figure out or find out that stuff, and then it just stops.
Yeah. I do think going along with that and looking at Prisruk's message there above, I kind of want to touch on that before because they kind of coincide a little bit. I'm just reading it again just to give myself a proper frame of reference. Yeah, I do know there are certain things that we're definitely lacking guidelines on. And, Red Heron, for example, they stepped up to the plate and made guidelines for balance team. But we do have guidelines for looting and mob design. We've always had those. Those have been in the drive since day one. So the system to loot things, how that works, is there. System to make mobs and mobs are effective is there. So I don't really see that as really a good argument because we do have those. Balancing, that one's been a bit of an issue. We haven't had anything written down, so I do see that one until Heron writ out that thing as not being as clear as it could be. But in terms of storylines and whatnot, why I wanted things to be a lot more collaborative, they have not been realistically. There has been issues there.
The issue about collaborative storytelling is there's also not enough people.
Yes, that is another big issue. Is a lot of regions had maybe one or two GMs, so that you didn't really have the option to collaborate. Which kind of goes into one of the other suggestions I have for what we can do going forward is closing it down to a single region. That would mean continuing the stories that are currently going on, concluding them, and pushing everyone towards a single region, whether that's opening up a new region or everyone moving into Arlogus or Alderia or whatnot. I know we've been building up the Ruby Queen, so maybe we focus out, get a couple games, and do that. That's the route we want to go in, and then finish things up, unlock tier 3, or maybe unlock tier 3 as part of that. I don't know, but something to discuss if that's the route we go. I'm just gonna read what Monty posted because I feel like that's kind of stepping on what I was just mentioning.
Yeah, I'll maybe expand because I know Kate brought it up too. Because the idea was that we might not have enough staff to run 4 regions, maybe not even 3, maybe not even 2. I know Kate brought up that. So like, let's say Kate and I, Kate can't play in Doladir, I can't play in Arlogus. The issue is, okay, let's say Kate and I are now in one region together, and it's the only region we can't play there. That was the one worry. I'm just kind of summing up my thing. Yeah, the question of do we want to continue as a living world or a system or game hub? Which region? Which is what you just brought up. Do we just move to one? Do we do a new one? I kind of put in legacy stuff. Story versus playtest. My comment was there. I like telling a story with the system, but do we stay the same system? Like, I know that's been brought up in the past, where if we're staying Syrik spheres, or I think the words were used like, if people want to play 5e, then let's play 5e. Like, but that's maybe another.
That is a big discussion as well.
Years. Oh my goodness. 3 years ago, I think we did a little poll and we voted on what system. It was like Unbound, 5e, and Spheres.
And Pathfinder 2nd Edition as well.
Yeah, that one. And then let's say we do continue, we do no matter what region. I think I can't. I'm gonna say their name wrong. Moderator Canva. I don't know how you say
Kana?
it. Yeah. Thank you. They brought up the point, and maybe even Kane brought up the point of like, okay, let's. I'm gonna pick a random character. Let's do Octo. Octo's in Eldaria, right? Whether they're heavily involved in Eldaria. Eldaria is not a region anymore, and like, let's say Octo is like, I'm strictly doing things here. It's gonna go nowhere. So the question is do we do like, okay, do we do like a time skip, or do we like, how do we in people's characters, like how do we not in a negative way, but like incentivize players, like, hey, maybe create a new character, like maybe we need to do it across the board, right? Like, all right, hey, like, send me a little blurb, what was your character doing 100 years passed by, type blurb. Octo ended up becoming a mage of so-and-so or something like that, right? Whatever Octo's goals were. And then everybody starts on ground floor. I don't know. That was kind of what I was looking at.
It would have to be a sizable time skip, though, if you want to do it that way, because there are long-lived races that go up to like 1,000 years.
I thought
or more, or timeless.
There's some races that are just alive all forever.
Yeah, it would need to be that, or it would need to be a time skip that also pushes us into a different continent. Which is easy to do. We could focus on a different continent.
We don't necessarily need to do that, right? We can just like time skip to a certain time and just be like, hey, your previous characters are inaccessible, period. Don't try to interact with them.
You can, but I mean, we've also like seen how like riled up the majority of the player base also gets at like the concept of a wipe. So like, while it is an option, it's
something that
a last ditch option.
Yeah, it is also
the instant you tell the community, hey, by the way, you're going back to one Sparky. Yeah. Congratulations.
Yeah.
No.
We could also just do a big recon of storylines or whatever, or just transplant. I think a smooth transition is ideal in my opinion. No regions rather than one region or big shift.
I think my personal preference here, because we're kind of talking about, what the direction we want to go for. Sans game system, because system of play, we can always discuss that outside of this initial major decision. my personal preference would be to conclude the stories as much as we can. Go through, as you were saying, through each player and be like, one, look to see if they have prestige. If they do, we can go with that. See as best we can to conclude that character storyline, and time skip, region hop, and run a single region. Perhaps using a different system. Just because I know a lot of the issues we have currently are tied to the playtest and the give and take that is. I know personally I've been using the server as a way to playtest the system and build on it. And that's unfortunate. That would be losing that playtesting field. But the system's not ready. Or, as people were saying, for such a large scale, and the things that I want players to be able to do, and most importantly, have fun. Because playtesting is causing an issue there. I think changing it up to focus on a single region, and a lot of people to focus on their content, and everyone can play regardless on if they're GM or not in that region. I think that would benefit pretty heavily.
Yeah.
I think
That was good.
maybe we do another poll, see what the community think. I shouldn't say maybe. I think we should see where they're at. See if they're up to the idea of this. Because I know the teams. I would say is extremely important on what we want to do. Because if we're not having fun, then there's no game.
What are I just random thought.
Mm-hmm.
What if random thought was like to combine the ideas going around, like what if all players were thrown into a new region, right? Every player is there, they RP there, and that's like the central hub. But then like GMs can, like Octo can run a mission in Eldiria, like, and they can do that little storyline. But like they ultimately return to the one region. Like I don't know if that was an option we had previously talked about, but
Well, that
maybe
goes into my suggestion I posted in general chat. That was in text. So as a hub server essentially, where players would have the ability to RP and do all that fun stuff. But essentially it's no longer tied to the overarching Ruby Queen plot that we've been working on and things like that. It's just people
There could be
play
multiple
games.
overarchings.
We do not need people to be specifically GM. They are just able to roleplay with each other and go off in their own little thing.
Yeah, I just didn't know if we pondered that or not, and it's just me spitting words.
Yeah. So that's definitely an option. I when I posted that the other day, I thought that was probably the best thing, but more I've been thinking about that, more I've been hearing people's thoughts. I think perhaps a single region phase, a time jump might be better. It really just depends on what everyone else is wanting to do. Because, I'm just one voice here.
Yeah, I don't think one region is a good idea.
We would need two
Yeah.
at least. But also I personally don't want to go away from the spears.
I like spheres too.
I
do like
I will be completely real. If we go to 5e, I would probably quit.
Well, I don't think we'd
The
go to
idea-
base 5e, to be honest. It's way too
Also put a lot of work into
simplistic.
the balance side of things for like making things fit spheres, and I'd also rather not swap from that if possible.
Yeah. One thing we could do with the one region idea, I know you're having issues with it in terms of ties to like collaborating becomes a lot harder. And I definitely get that. kind of combine it with that hub idea. So maybe we swap on over to one of the regions that's already written up to make it easy, just as an example, Calabash.
So what if we just stick people in Fwindwin so they can finally get their guns and people can stop bitching about it?
No.
No.
No, God.
I know there's a lot of people who don't want to deal with guns, unfortunately.
Oh,
But
it was just this.
it was just a thought, yeah. I think, though, if we, using the example, Calabash, it is a single region, but utilizing the same idea that we had with Dolader, there's Portal opening up that allows players to do their own thing. So it kind of coincides with that hub idea that you're going with, Monty.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that would allow
That's
GMs to not step on toes. But there's definitely issues in that regard too.
Yeah.
What's your
the
major
biggest-
issue of stepping on toes, Hootie? And I know a few others
Oh,
were
no,
agreeing
no.
with you.
So if we do the hub thing, that also de-incentivizes. So you want this to be a collaborative storytelling experience or whatever.
Mhm.
But if everybody's just going to be doing their own thing, and we just have this major hub, it's kind of what's going on already. In the
Yeah,
world.
that's true. So maybe not have those portals in just one region and focused up, and it's a fine balance, fortunately.
I think if we had a centralized hub and that was the main focus, but still allow people to go and do things in other areas occasionally, and that would allow them to have their little creative, well, I want to add lore to the world, so I'm going to take this little spot that no one's ever touched, and I'm just going to add some stuff to that, and that's mine now, and I'll throw that into the lore folder, and hey, now it's part of Syrik lore. Cool, we're done.
Yeah.
Oh.
But the main focus is still on that hub region.
Well, Calabash would work
Mine's-
really well for that travel because there's way shrines outside every single major city, and they're all accessible.
So on the single hub region versus all the other stuff, the lines are extremely blurred for me there. And what I mean by that is, unless you are going to make every GM. Okay, in both instances, the first instance, you make every GM basically write and design games for that hub region. Well, then we're just in one region, and then people's interests wanes and wavers in one way or another, whether a player or a GM. Or you have that basically just as the flavor thing of, okay, you're in that hub, right? And a GM at their discretion can choose yes, I'm gonna reach out and do something that's focused in the country of Eldiria, and the players travel there. In that case, how is that any different from what we're currently doing, right? So what's the point of putting everyone physically in that location? I suppose. I mean, you alleviate people's difficulties and frustrations with travel and stuff like that, right? And that goes away, and that's cool.
I think that that's the major problem of allowing people to do other places.
So
Another thing is that in the current living world, pretty much everybody is in two locations.
Yeah, I
Baruja
don't think putting them
or
physically
Arlogus.
matters.
Or Eldaria.
yeah,
Actually,
dude.
Eldaria has
The
three
all,
issue
people.
all
I
with
three
think.
of those. I don't know much about Dolader, unfortunately.
The issue with regions is travel and people not really keeping track of entire regional storylines outside of where they're interested.
So
Yeah.
if we did do the hub, we could always have a bit of a delay before we do it, and at that point we could have the GMs get together and try and design a cohesive storyline that everyone's happy with, so that we all have some part in it, and we all know what's going on forward for that hub region, and then people can do their own little thing in other areas after.
Well, here's
think-
the other thing about that is that I have tried to get people to collaborate on one specific
Yes,
story
it's been an
and
issue.
focus on one, and it just has not happened.
Yeah.
I'm well aware it's been tough to get feedback. I've not had much in the balance chats, but yeah, it's just a thought.
I think
I don't think it's gonna happen.
if I do think the issue with the collaboration when not really comes down to leadership failings in terms of, my being adventure head. I've not been pushing as much for that. If we were to switch up and focus up on a single region, I could give people direction. So that might be a non-issue, to be honest.
Nerp, not sure if you've seen the note I typed out, but basically I think going to a new region solved nothing and likely will burden us more, as we'd need to write new stuff and drum up new interest. I think let's just keep the current regions in terms of playable area, but we kill off regions as a concept in terms of broad areas that people write stuff in with layered collaboration. Let's just have everyone running games in all 5 of the areas together. Remove regional recusal.
What's the 5th region you're referring to?
What's the 5th region?
Yeah. So
Amarin
confused.
Expanse.
Well,
have
yeah. Amon
five
I
Ray.
can't believe it. It's Yokugan.
Or region,
Finally.
sorry, brain
Oh
fog.
no!
No.
we have
So
5.
Legacy is right. It's Amon Ray Expanse. That's
We have
technically why
had
I'm
5.
running.
No. We've had 5 since the start of the Living World. Everyone forgets the Expanse existed because it's the Rift. You could put anything in there to run your game,
I
and
mean-
people keep forgetting this.
I mean, that's why I'm running, basically.
The big issue here is I don't think if we were to essentially just remove travel days would fix the other issues we have in such a large playing space.
Well, the
Because
space
we don't have
is like,
we don't have the staff to have
No, the space isn't the
the
issue.
feeling
yeah.
of community and shared progression, shared world. That is the big issue I'm seeing. Is that we could stay with the, Eldiria, Dolitor, Perugia, and Arlogus. Hell, maybe we should stay with one of them or 2 of them or something like that. Or maybe we stick with all 4 of them. The big issue is we have like 5 GMs, I think 6. That is not enough to have
We have 5.
the world feel alive for players in that large of an area. I think if we switch to the 1 region system, maybe 2 regions, if people want to, open it a bit further.
The issue has been heads not actually doing the thing of keeping track and sharing storylines.
Yeah, that
If
goes into my
one
failures of.
and we on the staff side can keep all the storylines in one place, and we no longer segregate, so like I can play in Elderia, Kate can play in Dolitor. The point I'm making here is that people can write their plots wherever. Yes. The world being alive isn't possible either way realistically.
My plan to basically force every region head that was available or tied to my thing has fallen apart because Systems is now dead. I was
Yeah.
going to.
We don't have like a Baruja anymore.
No.
I don't have the knowledge that Sithams had in terms of the details that they put into Baruja. So
Sure.
if they shared that with Zahudi or Kismet,
I get it.
shiny.
So what Systems did is he did put it in his lore document.
Well, that's fucking
As he said
amazing.
in-
Thank you, Sithams,
As
for
he
writing
said
things
before
down.
he left.
That's good. That's so good. Because
The storyline stuff that needs to get resolved, like
Everything's also in the Rugia DM channel too, I believe.
yes,
excellent.
pretty
Love
much
it.
everything's in Baruja DM.
See, this is why
So
it's such a huge
technically,
loss for
Arcus
Sithams
Fisher-
leaving.
I'm sure saying we vaguely have it as something still in play on a lore level. People can't go there unless someone decides to run something there. Does that
So-
make sense, Nerp?
Yeah, but the issue is people are just going to run their own things, and that's going to ruin the idea of focusing up.
The central storyline bit,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, so I think if we kind of, this is a bit of a build up,
Who's gonna
so
run in Barasia though.
that's what I'm saying. No one's like, I don't know if you're still thinking about dropping Zahudi, but like, they
I'm
have
still
one person.
considering it. It's just one of
Yeah.
those things. It's like
It's
I do have things in Borussia. I've run in Borussia once, and then I like grand, like, deep rooted storylines,
Mhm.
and the consequence with grand deep rooted storylines is like I touch on deity servants, higher like undead and stuff like that.
it does
and like
become an
setting the
issue.
roots. Yeah, I like setting routes for those kinds of things
Mhm.
for people to grazingly interact with, to, like, have that sphere like briefly overlap. So it's like, like a Lovecraftian thing of like, I have
Mhm.
touched things I shouldn't know about, kind of deal, and letting them carry those small things off in like some small part while not shaking the grand scheme of things. And I have something like that in my brain kept saying Bear I See It. It's not Bear I See It's Baruchia. I have something like that in Baruchia, but I was working with systems on that. So
Wait, wrong fucking channel.
That's the big issue. Is I don't think we can do that effectively with that large of an area.
What is it? Because I'm reading legacy stuff too.
That's what I'm responding to is legacy
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
I don't think we
Well,
can legitimately coordinate because there's nothing to coordinate.
No.
It was such a large region to play and such a small staff base. It is impossible unless everyone gathers up and just says, "Hey, we're going to run a campaign in Bruges this month or this phase."
here's where I like kind of disagree with that, because that is just a catch of terms, so to speak. So like think of it like this. Okay, someone wants to run an Orloga, someone wants to run an Eldiria, someone wants to run an Baruchia, right?
Mhm.
Say we consolidate down to one region, right? People still kind of want to do their own things, but we're all in one region now. Now, instead of it being like Arlogus, Baruchia, and whatever, it's City A, City B, City D, right?
And
And
like
those people,
yeah.
the
Yeah.
problem doesn't go away,
My
right?
cat. Sorry.
That's why I suggested that we try and get everyone who's running games to get together and try and just sort
Yeah.
of organize and like coordinate a bit so that they all know what each other's doing. I.e., like there's a meeting with all the GMs in NERP, and then you hash out what the planned storyline is for that phase region, and then we go there. And then if you want to go do something else in the meantime, in like partway through, you go do that with a game or two.
Yeah, and I and that's where like the real crux of the issue comes for me, is that it's not a matter of like area, because realistically these are like borders that don't truly exist to us. They just become areas within we operate, and even if we scale down in terms of like physical scale of like the world, the areas don't go away, because then they just change names, right? They go from being regions to being cities, or counties, or whatever you want. The issue ends up becoming people's want and desire to collaborate on a particular thing, and the ups and downs that comes with it. Upside, we get to create this like cool interwoven thing with different ideas and opinions that will touch other people's storylines. So one mission will interact with another one in some small part, and people can bring that to RP outside of missions, all this stuff, and that's great. However, on the other end, that puts a lot of shackles and things that people who are running games may not necessarily want to think about, and it will disincentivize the people who are already here running games to perhaps continue to run games, because then either we force them to run a specific thing that they don't have total creative freedom over, because they have to consider other people's things, right, when writing what they want, or we don't, and we haven't moved or made any progress. It doesn't seem like there's really a way out of it, because either you force people to do things that they don't want to do, and then they just end up not doing them because they are not financially or legally
Right.
bound here.
Yeah, one thing I need to hit on with Legacy's messages, just real quick. It's never been a region thing. You guys have done multiple different collaborations with the different regions. So like the Arlogus, Perugia, Eldiria conflict that's been going on, that's been brewing. That's been heavily collaborative. The things with
Yes,
like
but
closing the
we've never really
border.
kept track of it. Also, Arlogus is the worst example of that.
I mean, Arlogus, we've had issues with not knowing the fuck's going on there. Yes. Yeah, I'm starting to say it now too, aren't I? But
It's hard.
yeah, it do be hard. But it's not a region thing because that's never been the issue. It's always just been tied to
It's a people thing.
people thing. We haven't had the direction. People don't feel the desire to step over that imaginary border. The regions have always just been a mechanical system to prevent players from say, I'm gonna go kill this random player PvP and then run on over to 3 countries over and then I'm going to bed and in the morning their character's dead or captured. Or they're right about to be PvP'd because, people cross 3 borders in a blink of an eye. And they were able to get the entire server angry with them. This is a big issue that we had in the previous Living World where anyone who wants to play evil couldn't.
This absolutely has been an issue and I'm stating this outright. But I don't know what more I can say to make that clear, and if you think explicitly limiting the lore area to some new one is the solution, I don't know what else I can do to convince you about that. But I'm just giving my feedback on something that I think would be a solution.
I don't think it's an issue, I'm not gonna lie. Maybe, but I don't believe the borders are an issue. If we did want to, stay in the 4 regions and do the wibble wobbles and let people continue doing what they're doing, I don't think we're going to have a game for much longer.
Yeah. It was kind of like I was ending on. It's a catch-22. It's kind of like a damned if we do, damned if we don't, on a lot of different fronts.
So,
and I think we only kind of move past if we at least take a survey of the people who are at least running games right now or have interest in running games and kind of lock down okay, here are the shitty situations that we're put in, but we got to figure something out. What's your opinion? What would make you leave, I guess, and then see if we can drum something out of a common ground. We're people aren't gonna leave. The people who run games are gonna leave when we do this. There we go. Let's go. Let's work on that.
The people that want to play games are going to stick around to play games. The people that want to stick around to bitch are going to stick around to bitch. And the people that want to leave because they don't like things have already left.
I don't totally agree with that because there are still people who can be forced into things that will force them to leave. But
I definitely agree. If we do something major or extreme, that it will definitely piss off people and get them to leave. But generally speaking, everyone knows that this is a work in progress, and they've been more or less okay with the fact that things have been altered or are expected to be changed. They're not happy with it most of the time, but they accept the fact.
Yeah, but I was
research for forever, etc. Just for examples.
I was more focused on the GM side because at the end of the day, as weird and as messed up as it sounds, we kind of need to prioritize the people who actually run games before we prioritize the players here.
Yeah. No, I'm saying I'm just pointing out
that's why I said we can't really cater to players at this moment. We need to focus up on our staff because without our staff, the players don't literally have anything to do without us.
Yeah, and we're such a small staff gap.
Yeah, and my point was just that they'll probably be fine with whatever our decision is at the end of the day. We just need to make one.
Yeah, and I say, if I've been arguing with you, I don't mean to be, because I thought you were coming from the player's perspective. After reading that last bit, I see what you mean. Yeah, I like the idea of.
We should poll, but one region would be more flexible for making players feel like they're in a connected storyline.
Yeah.
I think you're mixing up my argument because I'm literally arguing for the staff to be able to do what they want.
Yeah, I did. That was that was me reading wrong. Yeah, I like the idea of polling the staff first, right? Hey, are you okay with going to one storyline? Do you want what Legacy's saying? Hey, having the freedom to run in God forbid the Confederacy or Perugia or the Stormland, wherever, right?
Yeah.
What are you okay with? What are you not okay with? And then we come together with the 5 to 7 GMs that we do have at the moment. And then we're okay, we're all hopefully a majority on one page. Then we come to players with okay, if we have to go to 2 regions, another poll, granted, there's going to be bias and yeah, I'm reading that too.
Yeah, we need a clean house.
Yeah.
I was getting ready to just say, like,
One region
who
would kill
are
my
our
interest
GM?
almost entirely outside of system
Oh, okay.
development.
Hang on.
I can't speak for Kate, but Doliter is where she's been running
Mhm.
forever, and while I think she can adapt to anywhere because she's awesome like that. But like
Mhm.
Zahudi, I'm not sure why you're against being able to still run in Barathea if you stay, unless you really want to run a shared storyline in a new region, in which case I'm sorry I misunderstood your desires.
Baracia.
So,
Paris.
okay. Technically, she is right, but like at the
Mhm,
same
mhm.
time, the reason I like Older is because it's fun. If you asked me to run an Eldiria, I'd probably tell you no. I
Yeah.
don't find it. I don't find it interesting. I find it boring.
Mhm.
Like, and that's kind of the issue with a one region thing from my point of view is that we're gonna pick a region. I'm just gonna look at it and go, this is ungodly boring to me.
I'll have to say on like the one region thing, even though I'm personally not really for it because I don't honestly have any thoughts like one way or another, that like pulls me any direction. But even in that same vein for like the one region thing, where I said that like the idea of it being large doesn't really change as you just go from regions to cities or whatever. In the same vein, like places have a bunch of different cultures with a bunch of different things that could be going on. You can still localize those things and create the areas that you want to create in that kind of situation where it's like, oh yeah, somebody wants to do their whole like forest hippie thing like our Logos has going on. All right, there's just a section of the new region that's forested or whatever or jungled. It's hotter because it's closer to the equator of the planet and whatever. There are people who value nature and things way more than other people and the rest of like the kingdom or what have you. They have their own set of laws and things that they abide by. It can still be what you want it to be.
Mhm.
It's just not an entire country, right? And you can still, do your dragon theme thing or your Lovecraftian theme thing or your I forget what the word for Borussia is, but the Borussian thing, in that localized region, it can still happen, right? It just
Gothic
isn't
horror.
on the literal scale. Oh, thank you, Gothic. Fuck. It, I'm not like really like for or against it, but like everything we're doing now doesn't necessarily change just because we're in a region because those are arbitrary like metaphysical barriers, right? We're not literally, going across these areas where it actually is a problem. So whatever region we would create in that instance, we can still have it operate in the capacity that we have. It's just what is the purpose of changing those titles serve? I guess. Anyway.
Yeah.
But that aside, who are the 5G? Who are the GMs that we have right
Okay.
now? I'm sorry.
Okay, this is what I'm trying to get at. One, Nerp, you're gonna post this in public.
Yeah, this video is gonna be public. Yes.
Oh, this makes the conversation so much harder.
Coffee.
We gotta be,
Just throw it all out. They can get
No
offended
matter
if
at
they
this
want.
point.
You can
We
Yeah.
have 5 DMs.
yes.
Monty, me. It technically was Sithem's,
Oh,
but he's gone.
yeah.
So that's one for Dolder, one for our Locus. We have 2 in
So
Perugia.
I'm now
So-
understanding what Legacy's getting at. Continue. I'll touch on Legacy's thing now when you're done. Unless I need to touch on your
Yeah.
thing.
We have 2 in Perugia. The problem is with Perugia, Kuro and Priz run every blood moon. And what I mean by that
Infrequent.
is the fact that they're so infrequent you can't really count on them. Full Metal does run.
He just started a static.
He just started a static, so he can at least be reliable enough to run games, but a static is a static.
Mhm.
Red Herring is going to go into school, which means to rely on him to run games is going to be harder. We have Octo running where he wants to run, which is fine. But everybody else has been so infrequent in running, they might as well not have the tag.
What do you mean? I ran the game last week.
Yes, but you're thinking of dropping, so I'm not counting you.
He's still running, so he still counts. even if he is considering dropping. We're trying to alleviate that and, not have people drop.
Oh, 5.5.
I assume Kate was just counting in a worst case scenario, though,
Okay,
because
that's fair.
assuming they do
Because-
drop, that's what we have to consider. The
Because
total.
right now we have at least 3 people that they run so infrequently they might as well not have the tag or exist. So we have 5, quote unquote, technically.
Mm-hmm.
And those 5 are the people that actually run games in a frequent enough basis to actually be people.
Know what you're getting at? Term or phrase is.
Well, the-
I know what you're
well,
getting at.
I'm aware the term of phrase is
Yeah.
not great.
We'll
But
just put on
from
people
a-
relevant to this discussion. There,
from
that's
a
what you have to
from
do
a
to make it at least somewhat polite, Kate.
from a worker's
Jesus.
standpoint, they're not working.
Yeah.
We do have a
What-
certain number of people who are not fulfilling the full GM or even part-time GM
part-time, yeah, yes.
requirements to maintain the role that they have. And some of them are actively using, some of them are not.
Yeah, like I know Priz is because he's been helping me with the Leon shit and the Moon Lady shit
Mm-hmm.
and the painting shit.
Yeah. So I think I'm kind of getting what you're finally throwing down, Legacy. In that you're not saying regions as in like just do a travel days and everything will be a Gucci, which is what I was kind of understanding it as. You are saying remove what is essentially a roadblock in a region head. Someone who is like scary in some cases. I know people are like, I don't know what I can do there, so I just want to do my own thing. If we remove that roadblock, that would essentially be what you're getting at. Correct me if I'm wrong. In terms of Kate's, brutal truth, or just truth. It's not really that brutal. We are very limited in staff, and there's a few things that we can do to fix that. Hopefully, addressing these concerns, which we need to make a poll. I think the best thing we can do today is just make a poll and see how those who are GMs feel and what they want to do. Because without them, we don't have a game.
I
Go
would
ahead.
say that we should probably, for each GM, like, I don't know if all of them are here, but I know some of them are chatting. Just, like, sit down, maybe go into DMs and say, hey, what is the issue? Is the issue me in case of you, Nerp? If you're like, hey, am I fucking up? What am I fucking up on? You're not going to be punished for like saying, hey, this is what's fucked up. This is why I'm angry and burnt out, or just don't want to, deal with stuff. Basically, just go down the line, start talking to staff, and noting down, hey, what are the issues? How would you fix it? And see how many, and then eventually get together and just have something open for what can we do to fix this? This is what everyone's suggestion is so far, and all that.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely feel direct messaging will be in my future. As part of this.
Well, You got 3.5 of us. And I kind of like already went over why, I try to do my own thing in the Upper Mountains is because I like writing grand internet connected stories
Does the
that
regional thing make more sense?
Yeah, it does. Yeah. And I also just can't read. Sorry.
Nerb. Check the example I gave for a major roadblock for cross-regional.
Yeah, no, it makes more sense. I thought you were just saying get rid of travel days, and I was like, that's not gonna do much.
The RP thing was where I was also tripping up at, because I think we generally agreed on like let GMs run where they want, right? Like wherever. Where I was confused with was the RP channel threads, right? Like I see what you're saying. So like K wants to keep running on Doldir. The Doldir X amount of channels are still open. Arlogus and I X channels are open. Zahudi, like if they stayed on their region, Baruja, or at least their island, right? Zahudi, like that might still be open. And Octo, you're in the mountains. I don't know. Maybe you have a village there, but something like that, right?
Yeah, there's no village. It's just a thread from a prestige mission that I was trying to include people in, and somebody lives in China, so it's hard.
Yeah, to be fair, at this point, we can just assume Bruges is kind of dead.
I would say, if we decide, or specifically the GMs decide, because that's going to be the major decision of where we end up going. If the team decides to stick with the current regions, remove region heads as a concept, and make basically just lore keepers.
I don't think that's necessarily a bad idea.
Yeah, I don't think it's a bad idea either. A lot of the other things in play would need to be looked at too, but that's more of like back end stuff. So really, we just need to look at how we want to do it front end right now, which is the GM side of things. So for the GMs who are in here, going down the list, what would you like to see to make it so you would be willing to stay? Zahudi. Sorry to throw you on the spot, but you're on the top of the list.
Skip me
Skip you for now.
You're at the top of the list.
You're at the top of the list, though.
It's not my fault. My character starts with a B.
That's fair. All right. Well,
the duality of being a B and then a Z.
Truly, true duality right there. All right. Well, just going down the list. I know you run games, Kate. How you feeling? What are you wanting?
I mean, as long as it's in the Spears system, I don't mind because I actually enjoy playing in the system. It's what I run on my off games. I have no reason to leave. I just want to keep like playing in the regions that playing in the running in the region that I've been enjoying because I put that much work into it. To me, going to a one region thing almost feels like a slap in the face for all that work. Especially running for the past 2 years straight with no break.
Definitely.
So to me, going to a new region, yes, it makes sense. I understand it from that point of view because it helps. I think we take the current regions we have now and strip 2 of them away.
If we do that, we could always look into introducing a new one and keeping an old one in general.
So, like, my thought is people have brought up they wanted to go to Yokogan. Perfect. Bruges in a state where, like, yes, the lore is there, but we have so little GMs, and to run that region requires so much. Let's just replace it with Yokogan.
There's a lot of political intrigue involved with Bruges. You're not wrong.
Yeah, so which requires somebody to run it. So I think if we drop Borussia, introduce Yokogan, which we've already got enough people that want to write for it, perfect. people want games in there. It gets people interested. There you go. And we still keep our Logos, Eldiria, and Dolder on the side with the Amaranth Expanse still there for people who, like Octo and Zahudi, may not want to be under a region. Cool. They can go there. They can run their stuff, or like Octo, he's in the Ember Mountains. Cool.
Mm-hmm.
It 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 keeps us close enough to at least status quo, and still keeps things running, because we have the issue that if we stop at any point, if we decide that we want to take a break to fix things, which I agree on, we're going to lose a lot of people.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And don't get me wrong, I want to fix things. I want to make sure it works, but at the same time, we can't risk losing people with the state we are in now.
Mm-hmm.
It is you're kind of screwed either way.
By people, you're referring to staff, correct?
Yes.
I just wanted to make sure, because that's what I thought.
Well, like staff and players.
Well, players
did- I-
will eventually
ahead.
come back because
Yes.
I feel we're gonna advertise and all
Yeah.
that stuff.
Yeah.
But the main crux of the issue is staff, because not everyone wants to do that. Not a lot of people want the responsibility or the stress of being like a GM or all that. So we need to focus on getting rid of the frictions of why our current staff and possible future staff are like messed up or angry. That's why I said, hey, we kind of need to get our foundation set, because if we don't, that we're just gonna have more of the burnout and more of people just going, yeah, I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore.
And I just real quick, I know still fuck ton to discuss and some things to touch on still. I just noticed the time. So I want to get through each GMs who are here, thoughts and stuff. So Octo, you're the next active, not active, you are active, but you're the next GM in the line. What are your thoughts?
Just kind of a lot of kind of like what I said. I mean, I like the idea that Legacy has put forward of basically not having region heads, and instead of like making these arbitrary borders like things that someone has to be the champion of, kind of do away with it. Maybe there's like roles where somebody is keeping track of like the Arlogus or the whatever area's lore.
Mm-hmm.
And if a GM writes something into the lore of that and they notice that there's a conflict, maybe that person can reach out and be like, hey, I don't know if you read this part and like some of the things that we have written down, but that kind of doesn't make sense. Maybe we either figure it out or we talk with the person whose thing that you like configure or your thing intersects with, and we go forth. I don't mind running games alongside other people and kind of like making that interwoven story. But I say that, but at the same time, I also like having the ability to more or less write and do what I want. So I don't mind when my things tangentially touch other people's thing. Kind of like what I was talking about with systems, where it was supposed to be this Sunday, but it's probably going to be next Sunday because my parents are in town. But the players in one of my current games have touched upon a character who has a deity. I'm going to say deity-like because that stuff isn't concrete yet, and I've left it open enough to shift it one way or another. They have tangentially touched something that is suppressing a deity-like creature that is powerfully corrupted in a sense by another creature as a result of experimentation and a huge overarching project. This individual that intersects with these other two creatures, when they don't have control of themselves, makes monsters, more or less. they pop off their body and they come from a realm that is created within this structure, and the players needed to free themselves from the realm because they fucked around and found out because they were being too nice or they were being too social, and as a result of freeing themselves from that realm, they have freed a bunch of the monsters from that realm. So what was going to happen was some of these creatures would get scattered outside of the structure, which is normally supposed to contain them. It would bleed out into the Ember Mountains and become an encounter there if somebody wanted to traverse the Ember Mountains. And then it would also trickle down, if the creatures survive, into the other regions where a region head or a GM or something like that could run those creatures that I've designed with, no story bound things tied to it. And if a player wanted to dig into it, I could either give that person more information, or I could, pick that up and then maybe even use it as a way to loop in some entity from Miro, because I have some Miro related stuff in there. I like doing stuff like that, right? And in that sense, it's not necessarily digging into, like, at the time, Sithlem's thing. It wasn't going to dig into Monty's thing. It wasn't going to dig into Eldiria because I didn't know who I would even talk to about that. But the cause for all of that stuff is like a big thing, right? Creatures or characters so powerful that they have the ability to suppress a fraction of a deity's power. A deity itself, there is a lich in Brugia that I made that is tangentially tied to this, and all of the liches simulacrums and stuff like that are just kind of characters out there for people to do what they want as they want, right? Where they have that kind of creative freedom. But, creating a lich in and of itself is a pretty big hurdle. Having a deity suppressed and locked in someplace is also like another big hurdle for like dealing with other people's things, because it is big enough that if it isn't like properly fleshed out with certain people within a confined space, it can cause problems, which is why I like being in the mountains. So on one hand, I like having the freedom to be able to write that stuff as need be to make these like grand stories and let people feel like they're part of like this grand epic adventure, and they're not just killing some bandits or clearing a town of like some monsters, that they're touching on greater things as they get more powerful, and then also setting those boundaries, because there are a lot of creatures that I have designed in this place that go beyond the tier that we're in, and the players have the ability to get in there, but every single time it happens, I have always told a player, if you go and do this, you will die, probably, right? Unless you get crazy creative. Like, I had a player who wanted to fight a tier 4 monster, and I was like, okay, you can do it. But and in that case, I had like an ancient dragon who's basically sitting on the sidelines, facilitating this fight. It was like, yeah, okay, go ahead, fight it, see what happens. And the player went out and did it, and they got extremely lucky, and they didn't die because they rolled like 2 nat 20s on standing up. But the scenario wasn't going to be into like one thing or another. Anyway, way off track. Point being, I can't really say like one way or another how I would feel. I'm interested in doing both things. I'm interested in being separate and then writing. I'm also interested in like writing stories alongside people, but I also have a great interest in the freedom to write these, crazy grand stories with different roots and complexities based on what people do. And even in some of that, a lot of it is planned, but I also do a crazy amount of improv because players are constantly improving.
Yeah.
And so I will sometimes, metaphorically speaking, put my foot in my mouth because I don't know everything about someone's this or that, because I'm in the moment playing in the game and I've improved something that may directly go against somebody else's like pre-written or pre-existing lore, and being confined in my own space lets me avoid that as often as humanly possible.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I'm kind of split. It's not going to make or break it for me like one way or another, but I definitely lean more towards the freedom, but I also see the great need for an interconnected collaborative thing among the GMs.
Yeah. The only thing I would really say tied to your plot points you're going is not saying you can't do them. I would look more into perhaps how the entities would react to such a thing existing. So like having something that can suppress a deity as an example, that's a threat.
Oh yeah, and
You
the
know, the
entire thing
Titans
is
were
just
locked up for a reason.
yep. And
So,
the
not saying you haven't done that, but as a blanket statement for people who are wanting to introduce such crazy things, I would definitely look to think outwardly.
that's already been thought of, and that is like kind of like the biggest foundation of the
Yeah,
structure in and
yeah.
of itself.
I'm not saying you
And
haven't,
like
just
yeah, and
blanket
for like
statement.
yeah, for the same thing, like the Lich and Borussia, me and Systems were talking about. It's like, yeah, the Lich is supposed to be like not like an outwardly hostile entity. Of course, he's evil because he has to consume souls to maintain his lichdom
Yes.
in some capacity, right? But he does that in the mountains, where basically people who wander into here's like an example of like the depth when I think of these things. The structure itself has the capability to suppress a deity. In this particular case, it's because part of a deity's power is suppressed inside of a mortal body, right? And the individual is like a 20th level monk, right? Well, no, that's not right. They're a 19th level monk with 1 level of Ashen, and that's like the catalyst. But the structure is very, very large. It is buried
Well,
in the
I
Ember Mountain.
hope you're okay with this going out publicly, because this is a public meeting. And you're giving a lot of
Yeah,
lore details.
don't worry about it, because like one way or another, like there is a chance where I'm going to have to shelve this, and
Fair enough.
it will be fine, right?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it'll be fine, and I understand that none of my players know this because I'm the one who gives out the stuff. So if they come to me like, "Oh yeah, I know all the stuff," and it's like, no, you don't. Not in character. You
Yeah, I
don't.
mean,
So I can
yeah.
check them,
That's
and I don't
the
have a
easy
problem
thing
with
about that.
but the links that I go to think about these things is that the structure itself has that capacity. It is very large, so much so that the reason why I was asking about ancient cultures in the past was because if somebody gets wind of that, that is a powerful tool that someone will have to want to and go after, right?
Mhm.
The structure has lots of ways to protect it from the eyes of deities and patrons and things like that. So unless you're physically in it or you physically see it, you're not going to know much about it, right? There is an undead army that surrounds it because armies have come to it at one point. A character set a grand scheme in motion, killed squadrons of armies, and now that army is now under his control, and it wanders outside of the structure without being able to go inside of it. Right?
Yeah.
That same character is in Borussia as a lich and uses simulacrums to basically just post up around it to keep track of it, while he more or less goes about his life and tries to look into ways to get into it. That same
So,
lich, being that kind of character, would be privy to like all the vampires and stuff in
so
Borussia, right?
hot thing real quick, or quick thing real quick. Um, Super tangent. I sorry to interrupt. I believe for your personal goal, I don't think that's an issue in whatever we do. Only reason I'm interrupting as I am is because people said they had to leave in 4 minutes from the scheduler. So I just want to make sure we get everyone else in that opportunity.
But the point
So
being, I think into things like that, but I like to write stuff like
yeah, so I don't think, regardless of what we do, having that freedom will be an issue. Because even if we did like a one region thing, which doesn't seem like that's going to be the plan, based on what I've been hearing so far, I would still encourage you to have these grand campaign strategies. I just, would want it to be a bit more collaborative. If we were to do, a single region. That said, Dr. Monty, you run games too, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
How you feeling?
I feel great. Thinking. I had my words together. Now, you put on the spot. Blank.
Sorry.
No, you're good. Overall, I kind of what Kate said. Like, you put so much work into something, and like it's taken away. It could feel bad, right?
Yeah, it's gonna be a huge issue.
Yeah, and whether that's a GM or player, right? Oh, okay. I don't know what that meant. I'm gonna take it in good heart. Yeah, no, yeah. Because I took over for what Earlobe 2 months. Uh, story wise, like I really like what our logo story. Like I picked up what Earlobe did. I really like it.
Mhm.
Kind of among those lines. Looking at what Legacy was saying, like not like understand it now, right? Like reading is a
Yeah.
problem. I do like it. I do like the idea of like, hey, Bruges has the lack of GMs right now, or at least in the sense of the day one central storyline of Bruges, right, with the vampires and all that. Like people are doing their own thing. I do like the idea of like, hey, I want to run stuff on YogaCon. I do like the idea of okay, GMs can do that. Let's open up the RP side of things to like 2 capitals or the 2 cities in YogaCon. That's kind of cool. I do like that. I do like the idea of GMs being able to run what they want. Since Legacy even mentioned it from the beginning, I do agree. I like the idea of getting together and telling each other what's kind of going on. Like the one issue is scheduling, but I think that's a curse of D&D in general. You know,
Yeah.
like we're all adults here. Because what I really liked with Earlobe, which kind of helped me out a little bit, was depending like disregard like how you felt, how you felt about him. Like I really liked when we met. Like we met like once a month.
Yeah.
And he was like, "This is what's going on." I had a full understanding of what's going on, and I was like, "This is what's happening on my side." It was great. And then we would just ping, being approachable, right? Like is also another thing. Like, hey, Eldaria, the church in Typhon is thinking about invading your borders. What are your thoughts? And I'm like, well, they could do it, but this is it's going to happen, right? Like we're going to be collaborative, right? Like that's the point. We're a team. We're a team. Because I'm down. We're here to tell stories, and I like that.
So, from what I'm gathering, and kind of going into Legacy's idea now that it's more understood, one, we definitely want to keep the 4 region channels. They're archive, the details and lore in there is hugely important. But make Adventure Team channel the core collaborative thing. Have GMs be more active in posting about their stuff.
I think that would be
because that was a huge thing that was helpful for you and Earlobe. And I got a little bit of that when I joined a few of your meetings. But one of the things that was an issue in my end in that regard was that those were never advertised. So I think as my part being, adventure director, I need to make sure you guys are doing that. Like every GM is posting things, making sure everyone else is aware of what's happening. So, that kind of goes into Sahudi's thing that they posted above, in that leadership needs to be more present in general. So,
which now that I've stepped up, like that's why I kind of mentioned it. I do like the idea of everybody's in the meeting, right? Like, hey, I agree. Yeah, I mean, I'm here. I'm happy.
Shining.
I'm not. Yeah. Like it's a good talk. I like it.
Yeah.
You vibing with Curtin's village?
Yeah, just chilling, straight on chilling. We're a little bit over, but I do want to hit on Aaron, since I know one, you're going to university again, so it's going to heavily limit your time. But you're also a GM, so I do want to get your thoughts on this, just to see what you believe the issues might be and how we might go about them.
Yeah, I'm gonna say most of what I'd like to see out of this is just like overarching plot lines. Like I think if we're not doing overarching plot lines a bit, it's a little bit like I'm not entirely sure why we're here. Like I think having like a really coordinated plot is something I really like and something I really enjoyed with the Ruby Queen, and I don't know what's happening with that, but yeah.
I had training during all the or interviews during the last like 2-3 regional meetings, so I have no idea what's going on with that either. Not gonna lie.
I think it might have fizzled out.
It fizzled out.
Unfortunate.
Yeah.
At this point, it was basically just an Eldarian plot.
Yeah, at this point, it's kind of just an Eldarian prompt, and it's a little bit, yeah. It's mostly just Full Metal and kind of me thing. It's
Gotcha.
I tried
at
to
this
get.
point,
Yeah.
So
I'm a bit like I don't know if for regions I don't know how much actually how much actual interest there is. I think there's a lot of interest in Borussia in Algeria. I find Borussia a much better region in terms of like being fleshed out and like having plot lines that you can do stuff with than Algeria is. At least that's my opinion. Yeah.
So I believe for like your big issue being that there's this not overarching plot or the like, that will be helped with Dr. Monty's thing of and Legacy's thing of a single channel for mission content, and myself pushing more for direct collaboration and having weekly adventure meetings. Because those weekly or monthly meetings you had, it doesn't have to be weekly, but maybe bi-weekly, or something like that. Anyways, those meetings you had were exceedingly helpful. I know that, like, while most of the team didn't really know what was happening in Arlogus, those that were in Arlogus knew exactly what was up, and you guys are popping off on each other left and right. So, that level of collaboration is what I want. I know it's what other people are wanting. I feel like that would help with that overarching story that you're wanting, Heron.
I guess it's not necessarily that like there needs to be like one story, but like I
Yeah.
would like to have like a theme or like something like, hey, by the way, for this one we're going to focus on, I don't know, deities coming back or something like that. And like then from there we start like having a few plot lines of like, oh hey, something's happening.
Yeah.
And then deities are coming
I
back.
think
Wow,
for
that's great.
this, clearly we need to get the other GM's opinions and stuff, but if we were to go with this route, during the weekly meetings or bi-weekly meetings or whatnot, we have a major topic of discussion, and every GM could potentially see how they might work that into their storyline if it would work. And that could help with that feeling of connectivity that the players are feeling like is lacking, and that idea of disconnect that you're having as well.
Yeah. I like kind of like bouncing off of other DMs and like running
That would
little
provide that too,
things.
yeah.
And there's not too much of that currently, and I'd like more of that.
Yeah, having a boost to collaboration, I think, will be pretty huge. I now know the schedule of a lot of our GMs based on that meeting scheduler I posted, so it does seem like Saturdays will probably be the best day. I know some people can't do them, so I might have to look at specifically GM scheduling just to kind of get that labeled out. But there's certain days I can do as adventure director, and maybe I'll need to step back as adventure director, and someone might be interested in that. We'll see what we need. I just want the project and people to have fun, project to work out and people to have fun. So whatever that entails, we'll see where that goes. But we are going a little bit over time, so I kind of want to see if there's any last minute thoughts here before we kind of break.
I did put it in my message. People should also be a bit more active in the community. There's a pretty big disconnect on players versus staff and everything.
Yeah. I think that one will certainly help with gauging player interest in terms of our story creations, because one of the the best things about GMing is being able to work with your players and kind of get their stuff in there. So it's all a collaborative game what we're doing. So kind of getting that, you're saying, that feel for the player base, being more active in it would help a lot with that too. But there's definitely a disconnect from player to staff. So it's not really a good way to enforce that, unfortunately. But I do not have time after this now. Yeah. I'll probably have time Monday. I have to look at my schedule because I'm covering a couple shifts this week. And I know I should be good for this specific time in the future as a generalization. The one exception is next week because actually the next 2 weeks, fuck. Next week I'm covering shifts. And the 20th I'll be away in Lake Powell for my girlfriend's birthday. So that said, I do have backup days I can work with, so Mondays might be more viable. There's not a lot of people who can make them is the big issue. So if we need more of a admin meeting, Mondays would probably work good for me for that. It's just, if you look at the schedule I posted, this is literally the only time that people are available.
On that topic, what we could do in regards to that is if you have someone just transcribe the general notes of the meeting, and then you can have it sent to all of the individuals that need to have the information but are not there, and then they can give your feedback, and then you just have whoever sent the message out to all those people send their feedback to whoever is currently adventure director.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Sort of like what we've been doing, like what I've been trying to do with the balance stuff.
Mhm.
Like with the last meeting, I had the balance discussion to-do list, and then the one before that, I had that one as well. It'd just simply be a matter of having someone do that, but for adventure director or regional adventure discussion stuff.
There was a fair bit of balance stuff that didn't get gone over today, but yes, still gonna try to send out downtimes next week with the updates given recently.
Yeah. Yeah, there's still a lot to discuss. So as you're saying, if I can get some help posting those.
If you want to schedule a meeting for the next time you're available, and then whoever's available can show up and discuss it, I'll try and write out a little blurb and then send it to whoever doesn't have it, or someone can send it to whoever. I don't really care, just as a thought, because there's clearly a lot that needs to be gone over, and the sooner it gets done,
I'll see about posting a meeting time in my next availability, which I know is coming up. It's maybe Monday or something like that, Tuesday.
Because balance seems a bit of a hell right now. I've read over sleeps and stuff. I just haven't given input on it because I don't know what the fuck our guidelines are supposed to be.
Yeah, so that's another major issue I did bring up. I'm not sure if you read it or not, but we don't have any sort of min or max guideline for things. Like for item creation, we don't have a min or a max power level scaling for tiers of equipment. Like, oh, a fine equipment should have this as a minimum and that as a maximum. I was going to go over you with that.
What do you mean?
Well,
Everything has a limit based on what material you use.
Well, we have the enchantments in the guide.
Yes, but I was talking in general, people like their custom creations, and we've had issues with some of those items in general and concerns with that because they don't know what is considered a reasonable power level for a custom enchant.
Well, if you look at the different enchantments, they do have a guideline listed, which shows relative power spell level. I believe that's on World Anvil.
In the new World Anvil one, it does, yeah. But I wanted.
Well, the old one shows that too.
I just wanted to see if we could get out like just like a list of like 1 or 2 items for each tier is like an example, so people have like a visual. They can look at that and be like, okay, it can't be under this and it can't be over
I'm
that. I
pretty
can
sure
make.
we have like 60
We
items in the
have
equipment guide.
um I think we have a bunch of them, but they don't actually have like some of them have unique custom stuff on them that just aren't in the enchantments because the enchantments are just unfinished. I'm sure this will be less of an issue when the actual guide is done, but that's an uncertainty, right?
Well, what I'm saying is, for a guideline of power level, you could look on the current public guide and look at, page 347 for specific weapons. The Acheron blade, you can see where I put that on.
Mhm.
So
I don't
there
think
is a
items have been
guideline.
that much of an issue. I don't think item guideline has been much of an issue. I think it's mostly just balancing in for like missions and class creation and stuff like that. That's mostly been what I've seen.
Well, class creation is going to be a multi, week discussion. That's not something that's going to really be.
Another
Here's a guideline. It's going to be like, we're going to collaborate. We're going to discuss it. It's going to be a long process.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. Like,
yeah,
I think
another
the newest issue was the feat, the prestige feat.
Yeah.
that or
Yeah, I mean, it's
you'll
a,
be working on a feature or a rework and there's just not feedback given because no one comments on it type deal. And then it's hard to gauge if it's reasonable because inherent bias of you writing it out.
mhm. So
Anyways,
sounds like most of the balance issues are residing more towards mechanics rather than items. Then
yes, more
Yeah,
more so mechanically than actual just like item itself.
okay.
yeah,
So I
I
was
might have
like,
put a
we,
bit
we
of a
got the
mechanical
items, kind of
item,
good
but
examples
The
already.
items are fine. Some items are a bit but that can be resolved later whenever the new guy comes out with
Yeah.
retcon everything. Anyways,
yeah, they're not a huge issue. I wanted to bring it up because some of them are a bit iffy, but yeah, it's not a huge priority. It's just generally it's like the balance discussion for like the power levels of like feat features or like the class features, or yeah, like as Zahudi mentioned, the big one with the trying to figure out what way we wanted to go for the prestige feat options because like 13 options is clearly too much and
Yeah.
it doesn't really
Well,
fit X Y, but
yeah, I think the big issue here for feet specifically tied to the fact that while we do have a lot of good example feats that kind of show power level of where things should be, we have some feats that break that, that mold. Sigil Mage, for example, the one that allows your animal companion, natural bond, something like that. I remember the name
yeah,
of it.
that one needs to be reworked as well.
Um,
Whenever you
the
have a
the
chance,
issue with those ones, natural bond specifically, is that it is not balanced for all the other ones. Balance level. It is a feat specifically designed so as a player character who has a companion, your companion can feel unique. The balance is not on the same scale. It is a completely different scale purposefully. Because it is not tied towards player power, it's tied towards an other companion's power. And then the other one that is kind of out of whack is martial training, which, while it does give a lot of features, a lot of those are very minor in nature, and a lot of them are more like proficiency tied. Like, as a fighter, you can get pretty good power with it, especially with those like lower ones like the tough option and stamina and whatnot. Those are outliers, and yeah, I need a mark that those are outliers, and they should not be taken for purposes of balance. But
right. Also, I'm just going to direct message you the sigil mage rework and the natural weapon list, and Ribsy grabbed all of the sources of weapon and armor proficiencies, and I know you wanted those in one of the last meeting discussions. Assuming
yeah,
we're forward with things, I'm just going to send them to you.
shiny, much appreciated.
The sigil mage rework needs some looking and review because I'm not having a hard time balancing it.
Yeah,
based off of my perspective on it because I'm always a bit of a higher power scaler, but yeah.
I feel that wholeheartedly. If there's anything that you guys need me directly for, like it needs a hot drop, I know I basically say this every meeting, but Firehouse. DMs will right now be best, just because they're more visible for me. I can look up and I'm like, oh look, there's DMs there.
Yeah, I did want to comment on, we put stuff on fire in the Trello, and then you made the nerd research. I'm like, oh.
Well, I made that channel just so it wouldn't get drowned out from other things, because I respond to the researches and then I drown out other things that are also time sensitive. So I more made that as a way for people to post different topics. So like, someone's got, oh hey, there's this balance thing we need to discuss. Post it in Firehouse, or there's, oh, I didn't even see the Firehouse Trello. Huh. Yeah. Maybe I'm fucking blind and I didn't realize that. I just scrolled up and saw Firehouse Trello.
Some of the researches that you had us repost were just in the Trello.
I see. Well, I'm a banana. We all knew this. Anyways. We went 20 minutes over. I will probably have a meeting Monday, because that should be when I'm next available. Pretty sure. Double checking schedule. Go check my calendar. Double checking. That people can show up for it. Shiny. Well, I'm just going to try to get as many meetings as I can in the next couple of weeks.
I guess if you can't show up for it, just throw whatever you wanted to ask or bring up into the stuff for general meetings, and someone will do their best to try and bring it up.
Yeah.
I need to head out. So.
Yeah, but do. Have a good one. That all said, though, I'm going to close out the meeting here. We got a lot of discussion, a lot of good feedback. Hopefully we're on the right track. I feel like we're making good progression, and appreciate everyone's help and everyone showing up and, all that good stuff. But I'm going to go and save out this recording and post it to YouTube before I forget, because I'm a fucking banana and I know I will. So.